Should start here in a second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Paxton Miller. He is a pitcher for the University of Mary baseball team. He is also kind of in some aspects known as the local kid. He is a former Legacy Saber, so he grew up in Bismarck and has really played all of his baseball at every level in the Bismarck area, other than a few teams that we'll also talk about. He is also going to be a full-time teacher here in just a few minutes, it feels like, as you're nearing graduation and the finish line. So congrats on all these milestones you're just hitting left and right. Pax, how's the final weeks, final months of your baseball career going over at? I've been writing down notes and just looking at your baseball career, and I mean, so many angles, so many different I guess we could start way back when I think I was in Hazen at the time when you were kind of in that transition from when Legacy became a school, when Legacy started having varsity sports. I
Mhm.
don't know how many years you played at Legacy when like Zach Wentz was there before Streeter got there, but when you talk about being kind of part of a obviously, the program wasn't super successful right away, as is any new program going to jump right into the success ranks.
Yep.
But talk about being your high school career, like being a talented baseball player. I mean, obviously, you played summer ball, you played baseball for months around the schedule. So it's not like you're just going out to play high school baseball with all your buddies. Like baseball is your passion, baseball is what you love doing. Talk about kind of being on the first teams at Legacy High School, even when Wentz was still here.
So I think everything kind of goes back to growing up, even like elementary school, even prior to elementary school, is like growing up, our parents always talked about they expected to have three basketball kids growing up in the household. Instead, we got myself, who participated in three sports in high school in tennis, basketball, and baseball, and then the other two being able to multiple sports as well, not just basketball, but baseball and volleyball and softball and even football at times. But growing up, like baseball was kind of a side hobby for me. It was just like I enjoyed it. I wanted to be with my buddies. Like I wasn't the most talented growing up. Like on those travel teams, I was probably one of the guys that rode the bench a lot of times. I just wanted to be there with the friends. I wanted to enjoy the time there. And I just kind of wanted to get better. I could care less if I was on the field. I just wanted to have fun. But I think that all really changed when I got to the high school level. Um, I started finding success once I got to the high school level. I was able to play under Coach Wentz for that first year as a freshman, so that was really cool. Like I came into that program like not really knowing anything, like what high school baseball was truly about. And actually, that year was kind of the funny year too, is because like that was the last year North Dakota was able to use wood bats
Oh
when
yeah.
I was a freshman, and so I got thrown in, not really knowing what to expect. Never hit with a wood bat before. Barely used a drop three up until that point. I wasn't a very good hitter, and I was like, all I wanted to do was just go out and play in the spring. And finally, I was able to do that because just as well as I do, in the middle schools around here, there's no spring baseball.
Hmm.
Every other sports, they have softball for the middle schoolers, they have track for the middle schoolers in the spring, but there's no baseball. So I had to find a way to get better on my own time in the spring as a middle schooler. And so once that freshman year hit, I was so excited to be able to actually go out and play baseball and like occupy my spring. Um so that first year, that was our first year as like a true varsity program, and we didn't have any seniors. That was our year without the seniors, and it was a challenging year to say the least.
Yeah.
Um, um, our coach Wentz literally told me after tryouts were over that I made the varsity team, but he also told me that I'm on the team to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to catch. And I was just excited that I made the team. I didn't hit very well. I think Coach Streeter and I, who I'll get into a little bit later, we kind of joke about it to this day that I was league leader, or like in strikeouts at the plate, um, in like the West, and it was bad because like I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I was just like again, I was just kind of there, like trying to help my team win. Again, we were very good. I was hitting 6 or 7, and I was striking out left and right. I think I had a total of 2 hits that year, and one of them being a bunt single.
You gotta do what you gotta do. We have so much
Yeah,
in common already.
exactly. So like any way to get on base at that point, but eventually halfway through the year, I started to get DH for it, but I was still catching the whole time. So it was really good experience for me to be able to get that first year of varsity baseball under my belt. And at that point, I had very minimal opportunities to even pitch over the summer, and I didn't even pitch that spring year at all. So it's like you said, I'm a pitcher for the University of Mary, but I don't consider myself truly starting to pitch and to learn how to pitch until I was a sophomore in high school.
Crazy.
And I know, and a lot of people don't understand that, and I think a lot of people around like the Bismarck area that have kids and even like the kids that are growing up through the Bismarck level, that's all they want to do sometimes is pitch, pitch, pitch. And I look at the kids that I grew up with pitching like constantly, like over me, like when they're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So no matter what age group, I was always on that back half. Like if we were in a blowout game and you seen somebody go eat up innings, I was your guy. I wasn't probably until I was 16 or 17 when I truly started getting quality time on the mound. But you look at these guys who were throwing so much early on in their careers of baseball. Those are the guys that had arm issues, and those guys are the guys that didn't enjoy the game as much as what I did now or what I do now. But that sophomore year was like a big turning point for I think for our program.
Mhm.
We finally had seniors. It was a lot of fun because we had just about everybody return from the team, as well as like I got on the mound a little bit. It was kind of a rude awakening though. It's like you can go out on the mound, do everything right, and yet still be wrong in the game of baseball. And I think everybody that plays the game knows that, which is like it's not the most enjoyable thing to do, but it's something you have to do in the first place. Um, I remember getting roughed up quite a bit on the mound. I was throwing strikes, but I was just getting barrels. I didn't know how to get guys out at that age. But that was also the two when I started actually being able to hit it or hit a lot better, as well as be able to catch a lot better defensively. Um, like when Streeter took over the program, I was kind of scared, but on the same hand too, like I knew it was going to be good for myself as well as good for the program to have somebody stable there over the course of the rest of my high school career.
Yep.
Um, so like he's been like a big mentor for me, and I know for a lot of other kids to go through that program um throughout. So it's been a lot of help, and I still have contact with him to this day, as well as I know a few other guys do as well too. But it's so cool. It was a lot of fun to see like each year the program got better. Regardless of when we were losing guys, regardless when we were gaining guys, like I feel like the program got better each and every year. Um
100%.
and I got better with the program as well. Like I always felt like I was one of the kids that had to step up in a big role, and like whether it be a leadership role or just like a role on the field. Because again, when I wasn't pitching, I was catching. When I wasn't catching, I was pitching. There was no in
Yep.
between. And like those two positions really can dictate a game.
Yep.
And anybody that knows baseball knows that. So it's just really cool because like as my time progressed and to the time where I got to be a senior, we were probably the least experienced team that I had been a part of when I was a senior, but yet somehow we finished with our best record up to that date.
Yep.
Um, Obviously, we couldn't get it done when it came to like qualifying for state, which I'm still kind of bummed out to this day. But on the same end, too, it was just like it was a lot of fun to be able to get to improve and get to know guys and become a leader and to be able to like apply those same skills that I learned then to today.
You've also you started in a sense started a program that has absolutely taken off for numbers people out there. I've been fortunate enough to coach at Legacy. That's part of like one of five pieces of how I know Paxton and his family. But coaching at Legacy, my first year there, which was 6 years ago, I think.
Yep.
I want to say we had 40 to 50 kids, maybe. We had a
Mhm.
varsity and 2 JV teams, and like we didn't have to cut anybody. And
Nope.
now I'm still part of the coaches group chat, so I'm fortunate enough to stay in the loop with guys and have an idea of what's going on with the program. Because I'm not coaching full time in the spring, but the last number I saw is they had 72 kids go out for baseball, which is incredible. Which you're gonna get plenty of guys that come out because their friends come out or because they want something, and that's fine. That's I hope guys go out and go out and try baseball and get the opportunity to play baseball, but they're literally having to cut like 10 to 12 kids a year just to stay at a relevant, realistic number to have a baseball program that started like 7 years ago, 8 years ago. So it's definitely been a program that's taken off in so many different ways, which has been good to see. So you're basically one of the starting pieces when Legacy's baseball program began. You graduate from high school, obviously a pretty well-known baseball name in North Dakota. I think, didn't you win WDA Senior Athlete of the Year your senior year?
Yeah, and then I was state runner-up for, or at the state tournament, so
Yeah. So pretty big name goes out to Mary. Talk about I kind of smirk when I think about any local kids or any kids who and college D2. I can just walk into this program and own the place and just keep doing my thing and I'll be just fine. And you know as well as I know that is definitely not how it works, even at NAIA level. Like very few people walk into the program of a college baseball or any sport program and are able to just run the place. Some guys think they are able to do that, but it's certainly not a very common thing that happens. So you start getting up to University of Mary and getting into the University of Mary program. They have a new coach, I believe. Coach Mo was there, I'm pretty
yep.
sure, when you started, because Barta had gone from my era. But can you talk about the transition from going to literally a program that started just a few years ago to now going up and playing NCAA Division II baseball?
So, like, again, that's crazy that you said it so well too. It's like everybody around here probably thinks they can go walk on to any sport at Mary and go compete. Like growing up, I always told myself there's no way that I'm gonna go to Mary to play sports because I knew how bad they were at football. I didn't like they weren't very good at basketball. I barely knew anything about their baseball program. But like there was no way. I wanted to get out of the town. I wanted to go D1 or I wanted to go like somewhere else to go play sports or go to college. Um but like little did I know how important it is to actually have like the local guys come to like the local universities, whether that be Mary or BSC or just stay around the town. It's crazy like how much of an impact it actually has on the university as well as the team. Um but like I got out to campus for a tour in the would be the spring of 2019. So I'm probably in the midst of baseball season. They get me out for a tour, and um, they basically say like, "Hey, we're going to give you an offer. We'll get you back to you in a couple weeks." They gave me an offer, and they said, "Just think about it. Not going to be a timetable on it. Just let us know what you're thinking." Um, and I was kind of thinking to myself like I think Mary's the place I wanted to be after the tour because like yeah, I've been out to the campus for other events and whatnot like prior to like being a student out there, but like nothing really impressed me. When I went out there for a tour, it kind of blew me away because I didn't know really what to expect. Like the facilities were nice, the education department and what I wanted to go into, like it was amazing. Like this is really
Awesome.
what I
I
wanted.
I can relate. That was that
Yes,
piece of that tour when I took it. Oh, it didn't take me long to make a decision in my head, and I can relate.
yes, exactly. Like there wasn't a bad part about the university like during the tour. Like the nothing was gonna like shy me away from it. So I just kind of told myself like let's wait a couple weeks, like let this digest a little bit, see if anything else comes up. And at the time, like nothing else really came up or stuck out. Like if Minot State were to offer me, or if let's say Concordia Moorhead or St. Cloud State. If anybody else would have came up and approached me and an offer, I don't know if I would have even like considered it with how good of a Mary like recruiting they did with me with Coach Mo at the time. And it was close to home, and but I could still live off campus and make my own college experience, which I believe I was able to do that. But when I got out to campus, it was amazing. I got out there. I had barely gotten in the weight room in high school, but yet I was still able to throw mid 80s as a twig of a kid, and that was one of their selling points during the tour is we're gonna get you in the weight room. We're gonna put 15 to 20 pounds on you,
Yep.
and you're gonna be throwing 90 by the end of your freshman year. And my parents kind of looked at me during the meeting and were like, he's probably just buttering him up. Like they didn't think it was possible, it was just kind of music to my ears because like that's all I wanted to ever do was be able to throw hard and be able to maybe eventually sign a contract to go play baseball at some point or another. So they hit all the right talking points when it came to talking to me. I signed. I got out to campus. It was awesome. They got me in the weight room. I worked as hard as I could as a freshman, not really knowing what to expect. And then I think the best part about everything was being able to meet all these new people from all over the nation because I've never experienced something like this. Like we had guys from Minnesota, we had guys from South Dakota, Montana, there was a guy from Texas, California. And like this is like bizarre to me that these guys are coming to the same college that I grew up next to. And they all have this love for the game. But this is also when I realized though too, I came from a program where I was the dude.
Mm-hmm.
I was the go-to guy on the mound, behind the dish, at the plate. And now I get to a place where I'm just gonna pitch, and there's other guys that are just as good, if not better than me. And it just like it was never heard of in my mind, and I just didn't know really what to expect. So that just kind of forced me to work and see where I got to that year. And sure enough, by the end of the year, I was sitting a consistent 89 or 88 to 90. But that year also too kind of gave me a little deja vu year of my freshman year at Legacy when Mo left halfway through the year because I was very similar to my freshman year at Legacy when Coach Wentz left with his brother when he got drafted by the Eagles.
Yep.
So, but that freshman year though too, that was kind of crazy when COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I can still remember my stat line from that from the few games that we did get in, as well as a horror story. And I gotta tell you this because I don't know if I ever told you this or if your mom ever told you this, but it was our last before COVID hit. We're coming back from Central Missouri, who is the number 4 team in the nation. We won the first game of the series, but then we lost the next 3. But I pitched in one of the games that we lost. We lost 3-2. I went like an inning and a third. I didn't give up a run, no hits, like 2 strikeouts or something like that. And I was kind of like I was damn near in tears like after the game because like I felt like I gave it my all as a relief pitcher as a freshman, and not knowing what to expect because I thought I could be doing more for the team, but like little did I know like I was to be done. We get on the bus, we go get Chipotle, and on our way back, about a couple hours in, I start getting some like stomach aches, and this is what we call the bus from hell. So about 2 to 4 hours into the trip, and hence it was about a 14-hour trip back home,
Yeah.
like one way, and it was so. My stomach's not feeling great, and next thing I know, I have to ask for a bag. And I'm sitting next to another freshman, and he kind of looks at me. He's like, "Hey, you okay?" And I'm like, I kind of look at him like, "I'm really not. I don't know if I'm gonna throw up or like what's going on. I just like I don't feel good." So just like FYI, he's like, "Okay, if you need," he looks at me and he says, "If you need to throw up, it's okay. Like I can handle it." I'm like, "You sure? Because if I throw up, I don't want to get anything on you." Like, no, I'll sit here. And I'm like, sure enough, I start to throw up in the middle of a bus.
Oh yeah.
And
Are we talking
That's
like a nice charter bus or like a Harlow this was what we had left over for the Marauders bus?
No, this was a nice charter bus.
All right.
This
That
this
could
was
make a serious difference in the story.
100%, 100%. So this was a nice charter bus that we had, and I started throwing up in this bag, and we were lucky enough to have a trainer on board, and she was an angel taking care of us because I started throwing up, and then we had a GA start to throw up. We had a total of, I believe, 6 to 8 guys throw up on that bus on the way back. And then to top it off, we had another like 4 guys the next day when we got back throwing up.
So we talking like all these guys from the same food, or they were just reacting to your nastiness?
So we don't know what if it was like food poisoning or if it was like the flu bug going around, but it was just not a fun trip. Like
It does not
the
sound
trip
enjoyable.
the trip the trip back just smelled of Lysol and garbage bag.
Good thing you only had like 10 hours left to go.
Yeah, it was not fun. Yeah, it was not an enjoyable trip, and that's one of the most memorable trips I'll ever have, and probably one of the worst trips I'll ever
Yikes.
have. But then later on, I think then so after that trip though, we were supposed to have 3 or 4 weeks off until we actually played our next game, which was nice, so we could all recover from that bus ride. But then next thing you know, I think it was like 2 weeks, or not even, probably a week after that trip, we were told in the field house because there was still snow on the ground that the season was talking about getting canceled due to COVID.
Mhm.
And we all didn't know really what to expect because we were thinking to ourselves, like, we're going to take a week or 2 off, get back into the swing of things, and then go from there. Next thing you know, we're all getting sent home.
Yep.
And we didn't know what to really do, like whether or not we're going to get eligibility back, considering we played 12 games that season and what was going on. Luckily, we did get eligibility back, but that also did not help me either, considering I was a freshman. I won my freshman year. I got off to a really hot start. Like, I was just getting my feet wet in college baseball. Like, this was exactly what I wanted. Luckily, that summer, then I was able to play in Bismarck again at the collegiate level, like in the Northwoods League. And I assume you want to talk about that more later.
Yep. We'll get there.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll come back to that then. But yeah, it was just kind of a shock that like we had to go home, like had to move all of our stuffs out of the dorm. We took the rest of the year online, and it was crazy. Like
Yep.
nobody knew what to do, and I think you were kind of the same way. Like everybody was like, um, do I go throw? Like who do I throw with? Yeah, I got family to do it with, but like the world just kind of stopped, and we just didn't know what to do sporting wise.
Yep.
So this this also helped me become so much closer, like with my brother, with my dad, with my mom, my sister. Like we were like my dad and I were constantly out, like going on like a mile or 2 jogs just to get our minds off things and get out of the house, or going over to the local golf course and being able to play 9 or 18 and go from there. But it was just it was a crazy thing, like just everybody up and leaving. And then also implemented too that like, oh yeah, our season's done. There's some guys that I'll may never see again, baseball wise,
Mhm.
as well as like, oh, new guys are gonna be coming in. And I think that's the craziest part about college baseball is like you can just up and leave a program right now when it comes to the transfer portal,
Yeah.
and like with no penalty whatsoever. And like my personal thing, like as an athlete who hasn't used the transfer portal and like had no intention of ever using the portal, was there's got to be some kind of penalty if you're going to jump from a D2 institution to another D2 institution. Like if you come to a D2 institution like Mary or anybody in the NSAC and you jump up to the D1 level, be my guest. You're probably good enough to do that. Like there should be no penalty for that whatsoever. Or if you went to a D2 school and you're not good enough to be there and you go down to a D3, no penalty. But there should be no reason why you're jumping from a D2 to a D2. I think that's why it's so important to be able to go through your offers and like truly find out which one is going to be the best for you in a 4-year span or a 2-year span if you're a JUCO guy. So like some of these guys that use the transfer portal and I think sometimes abuse it, it's not fair to some of these other guys that have no penalty.
Mm-hmm. And just the last couple of days, it was literally, I think I saw something on Twitter. They made it even easier.
Oh yeah,
you
did.
You can do it without penalty. And then they keep talking about they need this restriction or they need to put some restrictions on this and NIL needs some restrictions. And then the next day it's like, oh, let's make it easier for guys to just up and go.
Yeah.
So,
and like, it's funny that you said like NIL. And I think like initially when NIL came out, I wasn't the biggest fan of it because like you look at these Power 5 schools and even like schools like Mary for that matter, like what's the point of being a college athlete? Or like for that matter, a student athlete. These Power 5 schools have all this money to give out for kids to get their education. Like when did it ever stop becoming about that? Like we're a student athletes. Like go get your education first, worry about your sports second. Like for me, like I came from a household that has been able to help me pay for my college as well as I've been able to pay for quite a bit of it on the same end too. But my baseball scholarship has helped me pay for some of my education. Like that's the main reason I'm doing this is become a teacher, or become a math teacher for that matter at the middle school or high school level. Like it's not for me to go sign a college base or to sign a professional baseball contract. That'd be awesome. But in the same end too, like this needs to go towards our education, not just like our students or not our and not just like towards money that we can come in. And initially that's like you're getting your full college paid for it as a Power 5 athlete.
yep.
Like what's the difference between that? Like is that not you getting paid? That's always my thing. But like when it came out, I understood it. And my dad was kind of like joking with me. It's like, with that stuff coming out, you should take advantage of it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, might as well, right? So it was kind of cool because I was able to get an NIL deal just by posting a couple things on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't it wasn't money based. It was actually like clothing based. Like they would just send me some shirts here and there, nothing crazy. But they just basically told me like every time you wear a shirt, just like say who it is, post it, do all this stuff. Like so the NIL has been like good, but it's also been abused at some levels, I believe.
And it connects directly to the transfer portal, especially the moment March Madness got done. That just went absolutely nuts on Twitter,
Oh yeah.
as I've seen. But so we talk about you even mentioned on your visit they're kind of getting you all hyped up to we're gonna put some muscle on you. You're gonna be throwing 90. So can you talk about not just your progression at Mary as going from the local Bismarck kid that might be a little awestruck by the guys surrounding you to kind of even being the main guy on the mound for the Marauders the last year or so. What has that progression looked like for you, and how have you been able to improve yourself through the facilities and just through the routine and really through the program itself at Mary, how they've been able to develop some of these guys?
Yeah, no, like coming out of high school, that's all I ever was a starter, and then to come to Mary, and I'm like, we're gonna make you a bullpen guy. It just kind of caught me off guard because I'm like, I never knew any better. Like, yeah, like I'd come out of the bullpen like if they need me in a tournament game or something in high school, but like to become like just a bullpen guy was just like it was foreign language to me at the time. So I had to learn how to become a bullpen guy and learn how to like, hey, you only might get 1 or 2 innings each week, but in those 2 innings, we need you to be throwing this velo and we need to be able to get you ready in this amount of pitches. And that was the crazy part to me was the training regimen at times between a starter and a reliever can be different. So like as a reliever, I was constantly working on moving my body faster, being able to rotate better, and like in the weight room it was crazy because I like my family could see like the transformations in my body within the first few months in the fall, like being able to get under do like baseball oriented lifts, like something I've never done in the past. Like in the past, it was all a lot of times being football or basketball oriented. Now, like actually doing baseball lifts, whether it be like a trap bar deadlift, like split squats, all this stuff. Like it was crazy to just like see that improvement and see like the translation on the mound because they truly show you like how to move on the mound, like with med balls, with plyo balls. And that was my thing. Like in high school, Streeter had us starting with the drive line, the plyo balls, and so I knew a little bit about it, but I didn't know a lot. Going,
How to use them is a whole lot different than just being aware of what they are. Yeah.
yes, yeah, and like a lot of people are just saying like you got to throw these nowadays, at like 100% each day, and like that's just not the case. Like these plyo balls, like for example, like if we're in our velo phase, like what we like to call it, um a Monday could be our velo day. So like everything is thrown at 100% intensity, and we're trying to like throw as hard as we can for that day. Because like that was the crazy science behind it. Is like what I always understood it as is the way to throw harder is just by throwing harder. And I know it sounds like stupid and there's science behind it, but like that's literally what it was. You want to throw harder? Go throw hard. You want to run faster? Go run fast. Like there was no like it can be as simple as that. So like those that like for example, a Monday could be our velo day. Tuesday would be a recovery day. So like we would do maybe some recovery plyos, and then catch play would be at about 50%. And then let's say Wednesday would probably be our off day. And then we would build back up. So our Thursday then would be another recovery day. Um, a Friday would be like a hybrid B or a hybrid A day, just all depending like where you were like with your body. So that could be plyos from anywhere from 70 to 85%, just all depending on how your body feels and how it kicked back. That Saturday would be another recovery day. And then Sunday is like an optional recovery slash off day, all depending on what you did or what you want to do to feel ready for Monday again. So because we need to train our bodies to be able to throw at the highest level of intent one day, and eventually like as a bullpen guy, we were training our body to have 100% days throughout, so that like that Monday we'd throw 100%, and then maybe that Thursday or Friday we'd kick back to another 100% day just to be ready, like because as a bullpen guy, there's oftentimes like we're throwing on a Wednesday and then we're throwing on either a Saturday or Sunday. Or if it's a weekend series, we have to throw Saturday one inning, and then we have to kick back to the next day and then throw an inning on Sunday. But going back to my development though, is like I came into Mary topping at 85, like sitting 83 to 85.
And
And
what was your body stature like when you were a freshman? And let's even go back to what did your body look like? Because I even talk about myself in this sense. I
yeah,
was 6 foot, 175 pounds coming into Mary, and our head baseball coach said we need to. He didn't even say we need to like get you bigger. He said we need to get you stronger, and I'm like, okay, like what do you want me to do that? And so there's so many answers to that, but what did Paxton Miller come in like stature wise this freshman year, so people can see what your body
yeah.
translated to?
So my senior year of high school, when they announced my commitment to play baseball at Mary, um, I was not on my phone at the time when they did it, and he was typing up like the height and weight for everything, and he put in I was 6'1", 175.
It's
And
roughly what I was too.
I like, but that was the thing. It was like I like at that age, at my senior year, I think I was actually a true like 190 or 195. Like he was just like guessing weight because like in
Mhm.
my picture I look like I'm a twig. Like I am just a twig. So um going into basketball season that senior year, I want to say I was 190, 195. And then by the time I stepped foot on campus, the fall of 2019, I believe I was 6'1", 202 or something like that. If I want to say
Okay.
right, I think my first weigh in, I was like 205. We'll put it
Right.
6'1", 205. And that was a lot of baby fat,
Yeah.
if I'm being completely
And then
honest.
the 24/7 cafeteria kicked in too.
Absolutely. It hits you hard.
That's what got me, man.
Yo, it hits you hard. Like you don't understand until like it actually like shows. And because they literally tell me we're gonna get you in the calf, you're gonna use that 24/7 dining, and then eventually we're gonna get you in the weight room and we're gonna turn that into muscle. So I remember right before COVID hit, we had one of our last weigh-ins in the weight room. I believe I didn't grow at all height wise. I have been 6'1" since my junior year of high school, I believe. So my final weigh-in for that year was 239.
Jeez.
Yeah. Like I had put on about 34 pounds.
Those 8 p.m. cafeteria chicken nuggets, they did their thing,
Oh,
man.
like I had some bad influences as friends freshman year wanting to go to late night calf at 2 p.m. or 2 p.m., 2 a.m. and play pool in the middle of the
Yep.
night while we go get like mozzarella sticks.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
So yeah, like it was just crazy because then a lot of that stuff though turned into muscle as well because that was the time also when I started to notice like a big velo spike.
Mhm.
Because instead of me sitting 83 to 85, or it was probably more like sitting 81 to 83, topping 85 in high school. Now I learned how to move. I've put on some weight, whether that be good weight or bad weight at the time. I remember in live ABs, we always had the radar guns out, and I would be sitting anywhere from 85 to 88. And I remember one time we were a week or two out of heading to our first road trip. And I'm in one cage, I'm throwing, um, and I'm feeling really good that day. So my velo keeps going up and up and up, and I still haven't hit 90 up until this point. I'm sitting like 86, 87, 88, and my velo keeps climbing. Let's say here's 87, here's 88. Eventually, I'm getting to 89, and I'm like, could today be the day? And I tell myself I'm gonna throw this one as hard as I can. And next thing I know, the radar gun pops up, 89.9,
We round up
and
here.
so
You're the
like
math guy, right?
yeah, exactly. Like me being a math guy as well as a baseball player, and a lot of pitchers know it's like you can't round up if it's a .9 going to 90. Sure, if it's
Just
88.9,
hits different.
yeah. If it's 88.9, sure, round up to 89. But you can't, I don't believe you can round up in increments of 5. So you can't round up to 90 in that point. So that very next pitch, everybody in the field house knew what was coming. They knew what was coming. That next pitch, if I threw that
Unload.
189.9, I just got to put a little more on it. That next pitch, I threw as hard as I could, or at least I felt like I did. Hit the guy square in the back at 88.
Oops.
Yep. Um, yeah, no, I remember that one pretty vividly because after I hit the guy in the back, I kind of got scared that I was gonna like hit another guy. I don't think I touched above 85 the rest of the day.
Yeah, it just gets in your head and you need to be done for the day is what we call that.
Exactly. Um, but no, it was crazy because then COVID hit and then I lost quite a bit of weight. I got down to about ooh, from like the spring of
So we're going
2019.
from 205 to 235 down to
So
something.
like yeah,
This is
so
fluctuating like crazy for
yeah,
a
no,
baseball
this this
player.
this is this is when it really kind of like hit. So like COVID hit, and then throughout that summer, I went down to about 220. I got all the way down to 220 because I moved back home. I was eating a little bit better.
Mhm.
Um, I was going on runs with my dad. Get back to campus in the fall. I think I go back 230, 235 mark. And from there, I haven't really looked back. My
Mhm.
goal has always been to maintain around like 225 to 235, somewhere in that range, because I always feel like that's when my velo has been at its best. Because anything above that, I feel like I'm moving too slow, and anything below that is when I feel like I'm moving too fast and my body can't catch up to itself.
Yep.
Um, because right now, um, I believe I have been at about 224, which has been like the lightest I've been since stepping on the campus as a freshman.
Mhm.
Because
It's
like
crazy.
if you were to go look back at my 4 year or technically 5 years now of like headshots, the freshman year, it's a lot of baby face. Or not a lot of baby face, but it's like a lot of baby fat on the face. And
Yep.
as years go on, you can see me like starting to like muscle out a little more and like truly like grow into my body.
Yep.
So
It's interesting that a few things that popped into my head as you were talking all the things when you're talking about like how our bodies move and understanding that and doing exercises and like having purpose behind workouts and not just going into a gym bench pressing and then calling it a day. Like even
mhm,
I go into the like when I go work out at the gym, like I am in no way a professional anything. I am not certified strength and no nothing. Like I am built
yeah.
by Coach Silbernagel and built by Coach Young, and that's
Yep.
really the only titles on me as a person in a weight room. But like I noticed, like I have, and I've told Coach Sylvia this before because I still talk to him quite a bit. But I've even talked to like there's people who come up to me at Verge and like, how do you get so deep on squats and how do you do this so well? How do you do this? And I'm not benching or squatting a ton of weight. I've
Mhm.
actually been getting up to some of my college numbers lately because I've been just kind of taking care of my body better and like lifting more consistently, and it's
Yeah.
felt a lot better. But I go back to like how your body moves, and I kind of chuckled at the fact that obviously we're around baseball so much, and then you go out to college and like being a college baseball player, college athlete of any sort, you are around it like 24/7 it seems.
Yes.
So when I go back to like training or helping young kids on the mound, like sometimes before I even start in my head, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to help these guys. Like these guys think I'm a pitching expert. Like I know a lot about it, but what I've even learned in going back since being out of college for years now and coaching baseball is some of these kids, they have no idea how a mound even works. Some kids don't even know the purpose of why there's the rubber on the mound.
Mhm.
Like I've even had to teach kids how to use the rubber and push off of the rubber, and they're looking at me like, "What?" So, like in the sense that you were talking about how our bodies move and how we can get a 20-year-old person to throw harder, not just by coming up and jacking up the velocity as hard as you can, but there's so much that goes into it that so many people just aren't aware of because they're not around it unless they're not around it until you're interested in that kind of information. So, anything else on even maybe even some advice you'd have since you're again nearing the finish line of being done
Yeah.
with your college career, but even if parents or young baseball players might be listening, like what I know you went through a ton of things on just your journey, but any simple things that young people can do to maybe even get and I'm not talking about 13-year-olds throwing curveballs. Please don't go that
No,
route. But
absolutely
um
not.
I even have fourth grade students that are like, oh, you should see my curveball. And I'm like, stop talking. You're 10. I don't like you don't even throw far enough from a mound to the plate for a curveball to break. So we're not talking about that.
Yeah. No, my thing, and I wish I would have done it like growing up more, is like get in the weight room. The weight
Hmm.
room is it's such an important aspect of any sports you do. And so like if you're in football, like go try to get as big as you possibly can. If you're in basketball, go try to jump physically as high as you can. But like when it comes to baseball, I think that's why baseball is so much different. Is yeah, we want to get big and strong and we want to use our legs when we're on the mound and we want to learn how to push off the rubber. But we need to know how to move that weight quickly.
Mm-hmm.
That's
And
such an
and together
yes.
and not spread out and one over the top in incorrect fashion and timing. So yes, I hear you.
Yeah, and I think another thing like that kids can do at home, like on a daily basis. And one thing that I also wish I really did growing up, because it would have been so much easier once I got to college and even like up till this point is mobility. Like I don't think like kids understand, like kids and parents for that matter, don't actually understand how important mobility can be and like how much that can actually unlock like on the mound or at the plate or you like behind the dish for that matter. Like you open up the hips, like you do some T-spine and back mobility. Like it's crazy what happens.
Yeah. Well, and you know my mom, obviously Rhonda
Yeah.
Olson now. She's now at Sanford, but when she was at Mary for 25 plus years, I bring this up because she'd take pictures on her camera while I was pitching, and I'd come back to the dugout and she'd be like, "Quit opening your shoulder too early." She was almost my photography coach is what I should call her now. But I mean, I never had teammates like give me a hard time about it. I had a few that were like, "What does your mom say to you after every inning?" I'm like, she takes pictures while I'm pitching, and she can literally diagnose why I'm off. And most of the time it was because my front shoulder would open up because I was good at that at Mary too. But so before we go into some more heavier topic, I guess you could say with some mental health, that sort of thing. Let's get to just the Larks piece because again, pitched at Legacy for high school, pitched at Division II school at University of Mary. In the summertime, you've been part of a few Northwoods leagues with obviously most Bismarck people will be completely familiar with the Bismarck Larks. I know you pitched up in Minot last summer. You've also pitched, I believe, in Michigan, correct?
Yep.
The one summer you needed a little switch up, so you went out to Michigan. Talk about those experiences and especially with the connection of the talent level that you are surrounded by. You're a Division II local kid like playing baseball every day with guys from Arkansas and guys from Texas and guys that are playing at all different levels of college baseball. And then you guys all come together to have some baseball fun in the summer. So talk about playing in the Northwoods League.
Yeah. So obviously COVID hit and I was lucky enough to be asked to be a part of the Bismarck pod, the Bismarck Northwoods League pod, that COVID summer. And it was really cool because we were the first league, like including I believe Major League Baseball at that point, to like actually be playing baseball that summer. Like when COVID hit, I think we started like the season like June 14th. We got like 40 some games in over the summer, and I was able to stay for the whole year as a Bismarck Bull Moose. And I think that was the cool part about that too. Is like, yeah, I was really hoping to be put in the Larks that year, but in the same end too, I was able to be a part of a team that lasted for only a year.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to do that and to be able to meet so many guys from like vastly different parts of the country. Like I had guys from Washington, Oregon, Texas. Like I remember there's so many D1 guys, and I was kind of scared because they had these big colleges behind them, such as like Texas Tech or Oklahoma State. Like these are big time Power Five schools, and I'm like, what are these guys doing here? Like I was
Mm-hmm.
scared to pitch them at some point, but I also like once I got in there, I had to tell myself like it's just baseball. There's
Correct.
no difference. Like you go look at football and like you go look at like the Alabamas or the Clemsons or like those schools, like those are the schools in football that are going to crush everybody, whether it be D2 or D1 level. When it comes to baseball though, baseball is it's such a great sport because you have these kids at the D2, the D3, the NAIA, the JUCO levels that can all compete at any given level. You just have to give them a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Because there could be a kid that's throwing 92 in high school and he gets to college and he's just not good because that's all he has. But there, you could have a kid that's throwing 82 in high school, go D2, you develop him right, and next thing you know, he's throwing 92 by his second year and probably should have been in the D1 level. It's crazy how kids can develop in college. But no, that pod year was so much fun because we would play 2 games and we have a day off. You play 2 games and you have a day off. The only thing I kind of get a little um they got so repetitive playing the same teams over and over again,
Yep.
which it was what it was. Like I was just happy to be able to play that summer. You
Yep.
had fans in the stands. You had people. You had kids looking up to you. You had kids coming up to you asking for your autograph, and it's just so hard to say no to those kids, especially when COVID was going on. So I think luckily I had a really good summer that year and was able to like they asked me to come back and play for the Larks the following summer and be able to put in the Larks uniform and be able to put another Bismarck uniform on was just so much fun. And again, it was the same exact thing. And I think that year was even better too because we had a couple Mary guys join me in the Larks, so I was able to meet new guys and be able to do all that kind of stuff as well, and more fan experience. But I think the biggest thing for me from a learning perspective is there's so many different guys that come from so many different backgrounds and so much different like baseball knowledge that I have to ask questions.
Yep.
Like, yeah,
In a
sure. I was
really
like,
good sense, yeah.
yeah, like I had to ask these guys questions. I'm like, hey, how do you hold your change up? How do you hold your slider? Like, what do you think about when you throw a pitch? Or what do you think about like what are you trying to do when a guy has a certain swing? Like there was just so much baseball knowledge that I could take from and try myself to see what works and what doesn't. And like the same thing they would do to me as well. And even more so, me being the local guy, the guys would constantly ask me, it's like, hey, what do you do for fun around here? Like, where do you go? The only thing that really sucked for me, I wasn't 21 at the time. So going into the bars and they were all asking me, like, where do guys go to drink? And I'm like, couldn't tell you. Um,
Could tell you, but I don't know if it's the right one.
yeah, yeah. But no, and I think so. You mentioned the Michigan one as well. Um, the coaches at Mary, um, really they wanted me to get out and about and explore something else and just kind of see what was out there and just give me different like viewpoints. And then I was kind of hesitant at first, and I'm like, this isn't really like my comfort zone necessarily. But in the same end too, let's try it out and see what happens. So I was sent to Muskegon, Michigan. And this is a town that's right on Lake Michigan. If you were to look on a map and see where like Milwaukee is in Wisconsin, you can take a ferry from Milwaukee across the lake to get to Muskegon. So um, there, like it was a completely different atmosphere than what the Northwoods League was. Like Northwoods is constantly looking to put on a show for its fans, like really good atmosphere. You get over to Muskegon and it's just baseball. It was a lot of fun. Like it was baseball, and like I didn't know what to expect. Like I didn't know if it was gonna be better, worse, otherwise. But like this really like instilled in me like no matter where I go in the nation, there's gonna be good baseball. And to go to another part of the country and live with a host family and like see like different ways of living was really cool. Like just like see different part of the country and like know like hey, I lived in Michigan for a couple months and really enjoyed it. Like it was so much fun to like put myself in other guys' shoes that came to Bismarck
Yep.
and be able to go like go and about and get outside my comfort zone. Um
Probably
so
grow a lot getting out of your comfort zone too. You'll learn a lot about yourself, about baseball, about
yeah. Oh,
everything.
absolutely. Like and I kind of told myself when I went there, it's like this is a fresh start for me. Like I can get to know like new people. Nobody knows anything about me. I can be myself and see where it takes me. And I think that's like truly what I was able to do because there I didn't have a job. So I was just able to focus just on baseball. So like those mornings I would get up with my roommate at the time and we'd go lift and then that night we would have a game and then same thing. We just kind of repeat that process. We'd be lifting 3 to 4 times a week together at the facility that they provided us. And we go play a game that night and like be able to see like Michigan and Ohio. Like it was really cool. It was just a different atmosphere than what I was used to in the Northwoods. Um, and I would love to do that. Like, would I love to do that? Something like, sorry, let me rephrase that. I would have loved to do something like that again this past summer, but obviously, like for my mental health and for like my family's, it wasn't my strong suit to go do something like that again.
Yep.
So instead, I chose to do something a little more close to home. And luckily, Minot just opened up a team in the Northwoods League, and I was able to go up to Minot and spend the summer with my grandparents who hosted me and kind of get spoiled by both sides of the family. Between both sets of grandparents as well as my uncles that were up there, like it was a lot of fun just to be able to go up there and be a part of another new program, to say the
Yep.
least.
Yeah, it's kind of the story of your story is all these starting all these programs, man.
Yeah.
I really like how you mentioned baseball is baseball, and you're around all these guys who some play in D1, some play in D2, all over. Some are at Texas Tech, some are at some small school in Florida. But again, baseball is baseball, and that's kind
Mhm.
of one of the coolest parts about the game of baseball. I will, for my entire life until the day I die, I will never forget being down in Weimar, Texas with the Bismarck Reps when I was still playing summer ball with the team we went to the World Series with. We're again, I'll never forget. We're sitting there watching the opening game of the tournament. The host team is playing this absolutely loaded team from New York that actually ended up winning the whole thing, but they're taking IO. And we're just a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-old kids from Bismarck, North Dakota, watching all these 18 and 19-year-olds just laser these balls around. And I'll never forget, we're sitting here like, how are we supposed to compete with these teams? And Troy Olson, who I'm sure you are very well known in the Bismarck area, he used to coach at Century for a while. He's assistant now at Century, but and very well known in the summer baseball in Bismarck. But he looked at us and said, "What are you guys so worried about?" He's like, "It's just baseball. Like, do what got you here, and we'll be just fine." He's like,
Yeah.
Are we going to win any games? I don't know, but just play baseball." And I even say that in the sense that it's helped me as a teacher in so many ways, observing other teachers, being observed myself, not necessarily comparing myself to others because I find myself doing things a lot differently than a lot of teachers, but just doing what works for you and just doing what you're good at and sticking to that and not switching things so it looks more like theirs or not switching things so it looks like that one over there. But the whole it's just baseball, just play your game and you'll be just fine has translated again personally for myself in so many ways other than just sports. So I'm really glad you mention that with that piece. Anything else you want to mention from the Northwoods League?
No, it's just again, like if you're ever given the opportunity to go play summer ball outside of where you're from or even like where you're from, just go take the opportunity, go enjoy it. It's a lot laid back and it's a lot of you figuring out who you are as a player and possibly who you are as a person of like what's your work ethic because a lot of times like there's no scheduled gym time for you to go lift. Like you've got to make that time on yourself. And same thing with like getting your work in throwing at games. Like what's your work gonna look like? Like do you have that good regimen? Are you able to build that regimen outside of like a structured practice schedule like during a school ball? So
Gotcha. All right, so we're gonna take a step from baseball and go into some mental health. And anybody who knows Paxton and the Millers know that they had a very, very unfortunate and significant event take place in their lives. Was that a year or two now?
so it'd be about a year and a half. So it'd
Year
be
and a half?
November of 2022.
Gotcha. So, obviously, mental health can be a really heavy topic. It can be like a very open conversation, and some people stay away from talking about it because some people have experienced things much like your family had to experience. And I also want to mention that anything I talk about from mental health from my perspective, I am in no way comparing anything I've ever gone through to what Paxton and his family went through a year and a half ago. And I before I get into stuff with Paxton's own personal anything, and myself, I look at it, especially as a teacher, mental health is huge for me. I know in our entire world, especially after COVID, I know mental health rose to the top of everyone's priorities list rather quickly. I not a ton of people know that I struggled badly with mental health when I was in college. I sometimes am actually somewhat embarrassed to say that I only played 2 years of college baseball at a 4-year school, but the more and more I've talked about it, the more and more it hasn't bothered me at all. And I think it bothered me because I didn't want to be looked at like I wasn't good enough for something or that I quit something. And I've refused and I've continuously told myself that I will never blame a coaching staff. I will never blame a culture. When I was at Mary playing, our culture definitely was not great. It definitely wasn't what it is now. I've even told my mom after listening to Coach Spencer talk at conferences, I'm like, can you check my eligibility? Because I'd love to go play for Spence for a year or two if that's possible. But yeah, when I was in college, I mean, a few years ago now. I've been teaching for 8 years, so 8 years ago now, which that time flew by real quick. But um, I remember kind of thinking the first year was fine. Second year, I think I wasn't getting enough sleep. I was so worried about school and balance, and I have baseball practice at 5 in the morning, and I have this, and there's so many things going on in life that I have so much respect for anybody who's a student athlete at any level, whether it's NAI, Division 3, D2D, anybody. I don't even
Mhm.
care what sport you play. It is a commitment, and people don't realize the commitment and time it takes until they actually experience it and go through it. Um, I remember kind of pondering my sophomore year, is this still something I want to continue doing? And I was asking people questions left and right, like, is this worth it? Do I want to keep doing this? Because I don't feel good. I'm not myself. When I talk about this to other people, I tell them I never had thoughts of doing anything bad to myself, or hurting myself in the mental health category. I wasn't right, and I wasn't happy. My body was not okay. I remember the girl I was dating at the time, there's even a few times where she's like, you're not yourself lately. Like, she wasn't super worried that I was doing things that I shouldn't be doing. But I just remember her just this, you haven't been yourself for a while. And I remember asking a guy who was on the football team who had recently quit football like weeks previous to that. I said, when did you know that it was time for you to be done with football? And he said, I've had injuries that did not help. Obviously, recovering from injury in any sport sucks and it's time consuming, takes away from your playing career. But the second I told myself the second it's not fun anymore is when I need to be done. And I've noticed over the years that professional athletes are obviously openly saying when it's not fun anymore and when this feels like a full-time job, then it's time for me to be done with this. So again, I am in no way comparing what I've gone through to anything Paxton's going to talk about here. Um, but before we do get into any of the deeper stuff, Paxton, as a student athlete in high school, college, obviously summer ball as well, what has mental health kind of meant to you, and what has mental health looked like for you? And I know that's changed a lot for you in the last year or so, but can you talk about just mental health as a student athlete?
Yeah, no, so in high school, it wasn't overly challenging by any means. I've always kept myself busy. I was a three-sport athlete in the fall, in the spring, or in the winter and the spring. I didn't know any better. And my parents always tell us, like, if you're not getting the grades that we expect you to get, you're just not going to play. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, school came first always, no matter what. And um, like throughout my high school career, I always enjoyed tennis. I always enjoyed baseball. I always enjoyed basketball. I always enjoyed being around guys. Like, I never really had a lot of like mental issues. Yeah, I went through a lot of like frustrating times, like when I wasn't hitting or when the ball wasn't going through the hoop or just weren't going away. And I think everybody kind of goes through that at some point or another. Um, but like, I never really truly experienced like um the mental side of things until I got to college.
Mhm.
Because like that's kind of when like um everything kind of just like took off on me. Like you get to college, you're kind of like swamped with schoolwork. You're trying to make times for your friends and your family, but again, you got schoolwork to get done. And it's just it was hard to like find that time and to like continue to grind through because again, like as a college freshman, like you have so much ambition to like go in there and do a good job as well as like perform as an athlete. But like where's that time for yourself?
Yep.
Like you like it's so like and I that's what I found too. It's like regardless of like who you have in your life as well as like what you're doing in your life, you gotta be able to find time for yourself. Whether it is like whether that's just playing video games or like sleeping or just like taking time off, like just relaxing and like being by yourself or going and spending time with friends and family. Like you gotta find what makes you happy. Like I'm gonna put money on it that like if you go to college, a lot of times like you're not going like you don't want to go to every single one of your classes. Like sometimes it's a grind to get up and get ready for those classes at those 8 a.m.s. Like they get tedious at times and you're wondering like when are you going to use this in your career? Um, but I think like everything like truly changed mental health wise, like when my dad did pass away, and we'll talk about that more later. But for the most part, mental health has really like never been like a big issue for me or a lot of people that I really knew. Um, because like as men, I think you know it, it's a hard subject to talk about.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to come off as weak or probably the best way to put it. We don't want to come off as weak or like sad or anything like that. Like we want to be like these big tough guys that don't talk about our emotions. We want to talk about sports. We want to talk about drinking. We want to talk about just being able to hang out with our buddies and BS from like time to time. Like we don't want to talk about our emotions when it comes to this stuff. So yeah,
Yeah, I think obviously you mentioned males being masculine, not weak. I think one thing that helps in my category a bunch is number one, I work with 95% women in an elementary school. So that's probably, I wouldn't say it's a major factor because I still have to be myself and I'm
yep,
still the guy in the school. But I also think working with fourth graders on a daily basis that come with a lot of emotions, come with a lot of emotional and conflicting situations with friends. I think that's helped me a lot. I know just what I went through, and I don't say that I went through a ton of stuff in college because, I mean, you learn from it and it makes life, your perspective, a whole lot of
mhm,
things easier. I know one thing that I was taught and told that I preach to my students like constantly is it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay if you're not going to talk about it.
yes,
And again, I'm a 30-year-old male elementary teacher, so these kids, most of them come in, they know who I am, but they don't know who I am until
yes,
they get me as a teacher. And when I start talking about these things, I think just the way I build relationships with my students, this is definitely a big factor in how they view me and how we can view each other because we don't hide anything from anybody. We don't hide anything. Does it make my days crazier some days when they have conflicting friendship situations? Sure, but that, I mean that's part of my job. Half part of my elementary job is being a school nurse and a school counselor 5 days a week. But yeah, I think it's helped me a lot. And so kind of moving into the biggest piece, and I just ask you to be as transparent and as vulnerable and as open if you want,
yeah,
whatever you want to share with us. I know I'm sure you've shared plenty with other people, so that is completely up to you. But can you kind of take us through the days of the moments that change your guys' lives forever in the Miller family?
yeah. So for those that don't know, my dad passed away due to suicide in November of 2022, and that was actually a day before my 22nd birthday. So it kind of like hit me a little harder than um some others, and I always have that little connection there too. But um, I still remember like that week leading up to that. Like I was getting ready for my birthday, selfish me. Like, what am I gonna get? Where we're gonna go for dinner? All this kind of stuff. And I just remember getting um text and a call from my mom, just like asking like if I've heard from him. And I told her like, yeah, I heard from him this morning because I was trying to figure out I had to get my college paid for this semester, and no one had heard from him throughout the day like since then. And then come to find out on my birthday that they had found um him, and it just like that kind of like it rocked my world. It rocked my brothers, sisters, my mom's. Like it just it wasn't fair to any of us when it comes to it. Like um again, like we constantly talk about like he he didn't kill himself. We believe, like, and I think everybody that has dealt with suicide in the past always talks about like people should they use the phrase like they passed away from suicide, or they died by suicide, or they died from a suicide. Like they um like from my understanding from everything is like people oftentimes are confused when it comes to this stuff. Like they don't know what they're doing, they're not in the right state of mind, all this stuff. And that it truly like rocked all of our worlds like when it all happened. um it's been really crazy for like how strong all of us have been in this whole process, because again, like we're only a year and a half into this, and it's just like it still feels surreal for that matter.
Yep.
Because again, leading up to the whole moment, we never saw anything wrong. There was nothing like that was going to indicate anything of the sorts. Um, and then just kind of happened one day, and we were just kind of like all in shock, and still are to this day, for that matter. But um, it's really brought like us as a family like a lot closer,
Hmm.
whether that be like just this immediate family, like our grandparents or cousins. Like it's brought like an awareness to um the baseball team I'm on, like Cooper's friends, Ellie's friends, like everybody that's like surrounding our family, like is trying to understand what like we've gone through. And like if you haven't had someone do that, it's truly hard to understand like what we're truly going through, because it's hard to explain the feelings oftentimes, like what you know or like what you feel. And for me, um the feelings comes in like the emotions comes in waves for me, and like it's hard, like it's not something that's easy to talk about to anybody for that matter. But on the same hand too, it's like you said earlier, it's like it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to not talk about it. Like
Hmm.
it's been so healthy for me to be able to talk to my mom, to be able to talk to my siblings about this kind of stuff. And like I think that was like our faith life is so strong too, that's like it's helped us through this time. And to top things off, for me, like be as lucky as I am compared to maybe like what Ellie and Cooper had. But like for me, being out at Mary was exactly where I needed to be. I was close to home. I had so many great resources out there between professors, faculty, coaches that I could go talk to on a daily basis if I was out there on campus in between classes and I just needed a safe spot to either go cry or just go talk to, or just like get my mind off things. It was just so great for me to be able to like go, like not have to like go at that alone.
Hmm.
Like I had such a great support staff like through everything, so like that was amazing. Like I think that's the crazy part too. It's like when people go through a tragedy like this, or if they have something to like the same level, it's like you got to be able to use the people around you. Like, you can't do this by yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom saying, and again, it's probably one of my like our favorite quotes, or my favorite quotes that she's ever said is like, um if you don't have a church life, or if you don't have a church family, find one. And like that's like truly like where we have gotten a lot of our faith is through the church, and to be able to like spread the word of God as well as like mental health now. And it's like, because this has like changed my view on mental health, because I never took it very seriously growing up. I didn't know any better. It was just like another thing. Like, people always talked about it. I didn't understand the importance of it until
Yep.
when this all hit. And um it's just been a like all surreal moment. But when something like this happens, it's like little things that like will like trigger me. For example, people, and I was guilty of it too prior to everything, is like, you like guys, whether it be on the team or just people like around, like just walking around, like people joke about, oh, I'm gonna kill myself, all this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
and again, I was guilty of it. Like, I grew up like I didn't see anything wrong with it. Like, but then something happens to you like this, and next thing you know, like, you just can't say that. Like, it's just not okay.
Yep.
Like, I've had to address it with the team. Like, I can't, like, if I have guys like saying this sometimes, I just can't do it. I can't be around. And I think guys like fully understood that and were like fully supportive, like what I was going through, and that they stopped doing um or stopped saying that for that matter. And I think it's another part too about working at a high school is like I hear these kids talking about this kind of stuff, and I'm like, this is,
Loosely, yeah.
yeah. And it's just like, I basically have to budge in and like saying like, this is not okay to say. And like, these kids at the high school, they don't know what I've been through.
Yeah.
And so they kind of like shrug their shoulders and like kind of go on. And I'm like, and that's why I can't wait to become a first year teacher going forward in the fall. Is like, I'm gonna like that first week when they're finally starting to get to know me as like their teacher. I want to be able to preach that like, this is a safe spot. My door is always
Absolutely.
gonna my door is always gonna be open. Like, if you have an issue at home or with a friend or anybody, you come see me. We can talk about it, anything like that. But there's also got to be a spot too where like we're not saying things as like we're gonna like killing yourself or killing somebody else or doing anything like that. Like, we can't be talking about this kind of stuff, because as a teacher, it kind of breaks my heart to like hear somebody talk about that stuff, as well as just like a human being for that matter.
In a casual conversation, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, you have kids or people just like complaining about work or homework or just like something that's happening outside like in their lives, and they're just kind of like mildly saying like, oh yeah, I'm gonna kill myself. It's just, it's not okay. And like, people that have gone through this kind of situation can understand that, but like the people that haven't, it's hard to wrap your head around it.
Yeah.
So
Well, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but my next branching question is, how did your dad's passing kind of change your perspective on not only just mental health but on life? And I'll say I'm really glad you touched on the fact that you can bring this to your career in such a good and powerful, influential way. Again, what I went through is nothing compared to any of this, but kind of the way I transpire it into my own classroom again is I want kids to enjoy coming to school. I hate hearing it makes me cringe and makes me sad when kids are telling their parents, I don't really want to go to school. It's not really, I don't like going to school. I want you to come to school. I want you to be comfortable and be happy. So I think that's what I learned personally when I was in college is, are you comfortable? Are you happy? You're not always going to be comfortable. I mean, we literally just talked about being uncomfortable to grow your own personal life through experiences and whatnot, but just the happiness piece and being around the right people. And you just talked about all the supportive people you had at University of Mary. But going back to the question, how did this major event in your life kind of change how you view life, how you view your own mental health, how you view your own family's mental health together as a whole?
Yeah, no, again, like I go back to like my siblings. Like I think we have grown like so much like closer through this time, because I feel like I've like both my sister and I have had to like step into a parenting role more or less for our youngest brother, and but in the same end too, like he's been able to support us throughout our sporting careers as well as our young careers in our work fields. But it like being able to spread the word, and like with my mom being a funeral director, she is able to connect with some people that have gone through the same things, as well as now, like for myself, it's gonna be it's never going to be an easy conversation to have with a student that may lose a loved one while they're my student, or maybe like I don't even want to like think about it, but maybe they lose a classmate. Like it's
Yep.
just not something like that they should have to go through alone. Like they should have a supporting staff. Like I want to be that teacher or coach that's always there for them regardless of like who they are. Like people constantly tell me, and this is even like prior to my dad's passing, like my dad and I are twins. Like we have the same mannerisms. We
Mhm.
if you were to pull out a yearbook from my senior year and his senior year minus my orange hair, we look like twins. Um like we talk sports, we did all this stuff, but like again, he was always there for myself, for my sister, my brother, my mom, like anybody. Like he never put himself first. And that's kind of like what I want to start doing as I get into my teaching profession as well as my coaching profession. Is like it's not about me, but it's about the kids and the people around me. Because I believe like that's what he always did. Like I we've had so many people come tell us like that his three kids were his life. Like there was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like he talked about us all the time. Like he never talked about himself. Like his life revolved around ours, and I want to be able to do that same thing. Like um again, it's so tough to be able to talk about like what he did, but on the same hand too, we can look back at his life and take the good things from it and be able to apply it to our own lives. So
Correct. Absolutely. In kind of a coping sense, I guess you could call it. You've talked about how much closer and how much closer knit, I should say, your family is. I know baseball and softball with you and Coop and Ellie being so engulfed in seasons, and you and your sister both played college ball, and maybe even Coop has some of that on his future horizon, hopefully. But um, you kind of talked a little bit about things that might trigger you to, I mean, bring back some of those icky moments.
yeah.
How have you guys together been able to like cope and stick together when times, like I'm sure holidays have been tough at many times, because I mean everyone sometimes talk about the open seat at the table, if you will.
Mhm.
But how have you guys been able to cope as a family, as just staying strong together in that sense?
Yeah, no, so like I'm gonna start with me personally first. Is like we have a like with our baseball program at Mary, we have a thing what we call our why statement, and it's basically why we play the game of baseball, like why we're here at the University of Mary, all this stuff. And I was finally able to give my why this year, and it like when we first started it, I always had to think about my why and like what it would be and all this stuff. And I was finally able to give it this year, and I kind of thought to myself like mine's changed drastically
Yep.
just from that one point in time. And um I think that's why like the game of baseball is so much like it's so important to me, is because this is where like I feel closest to him. And like I just got a brand new glove this year. On the thumb of my glove it says "Figure it out," and
I was
that
hoping
was
that would
one of
come
his
out at some time.
exactly that was one of his favorite sayings was "Figure it out" as well as "Believe." And so like that, like those are two of my favorite sayings, or like two of my favorite phrases was figure it out and believe. But going back to the family though, it's like we always look back at like the memories and like what he wanted for us as kids and what he wanted for us as a family. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong, it's so tough like when it comes to family functions, whether it be Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving. Like we always know like there's always gonna be something missing, and like we all know what it is. It's just the matter of um we're always gonna find a way to come together closer as a family, whether sometimes we like it or not being around
Yep.
each other.
Yep.
Because I think everybody in every family, it's like you have a brother. You probably know it just as well as I do. Do you want to be around your brother 24/7?
Not 24/7, but
Exactly.
lives
And
across the country, so I do cherish more time with him when he's in town,
yes,
but not
exactly.
24/7, probably a little bit of a stretch.
Exactly. So like that's the same thing here. It's like we all need to be together during those like um family functions, and it the joy that we all have, especially my mom has, when all of us family comes together, is it's just great for like family
Mhm.
morale, all this stuff. And no, 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 I've done my fair share of um going to the cemetery and chatting it up with him, but also too, it's like I go back to the baseball field, and that's again where I feel closest to him. Like it's where I feel like I can talk to him and all this stuff. And for me, kind of go back to the whole mental health things and like helping me out with it, is like I've been able to um have a journal, like a personal journal that I've just been able to like kind of have a conversation with. So I kind of write things down like after each game to like help me out. So yeah.
That's awesome. I like it. Those are a lot of really good answers with a lot of really good authentic resources. Figure it out always makes me smile. I know when Cooper was a freshman playing JV ball, I was his coach, and I was our games were always good for at least a couple of figure it outs from the
Yeah,
third base line behind the dugout. So
absolutely. And again, it was never it was usually never pointed at a coach or an official. It was always pointed at his kids. Always, always, always.
or some of his teammates
Yes,
probably.
yes, yes. But like you like that was the crazy part to me. It's like we would play state basketball. Like when I was senior in high school, we finally played state basketball for the first time in program history. And you know how packed the Civic Center can get when
Yep.
you have state basketball or WDA basketball. His voice stuck out like a sore thumb to me. I don't care where he be sitting, whether it be nosebleeds or front row. I hear his voice, I can see him in the stands like no other. And so like that was another part of me too. It's like that first game back when I knew he probably should have been there, like in the stands for baseball. Like I can still hear his voice sometimes, just like
Mhm.
what he would be saying. It's just like either figure it out or you just gotta believe. And some of my buddies growing up, they would always give me a hard time about my dad telling me you just got to believe from the stands. And I'm like, I look back at it and I kind of laugh because I'm like, it's crazy because it when you don't believe when you're on the court or when you're in the classroom or anything, like how often do you actually succeed? You probably never do if you're not believing in yourself.
Yep.
So it's crazy, like those little things that I can take from him and be able to apply to my life now. It's still with his voice in the back of my head. So
It's awesome. Good old figure it out. I may or may not have used that one too many times in the classroom the last 5 weeks. So
yeah,
it's
no,
a
absolutely.
story of spring in school. Figure it
Yeah,
out,
it's
fourth
like getting
graders.
to that point in the semester.
So through all of these things that have taken place in your life, baseball, kind of family tragedy is that sort of stuff. For anybody going through the loss of a family member, regardless of how a family member passed in their lives, or like regardless of what age somebody passes, unexpectedly or expectedly towards the end of their lifetime, what's some advice that you would give to anybody going through something that you and your family went through?
Uh, find what you enjoy. Whether it be hanging out with your friends and family, like again, you're not going through this alone. I'm sure like there's somebody else going through the same thing that you are. And um I so like early on last season tried to see a sports therapist, and it wasn't my forte, but in the same end too, like for other people, like it's worked so well that like people are kind of going through some mental health things, and they'll go see a therapist that I know of, and they said like it's worked so well for them. But again, it wasn't my forte, but again, it could be somebody else's. Like again, you're not going through this alone, and nor should you have to. Like this is a team effort. Like, and when you're tired, lean on somebody else's shoulder to do it. Like it can't be done alone. It has to be done with somebody else.
Got it. I love it. I appreciate the transparency. I appreciate you just being an open book with all of your thoughts. And I know it's tough to talk about this kind of stuff. I know a friend who lost her baby or when she was 3. This was like 20 years ago now, but even to this day, just you can tell that she's comfortable talking about it. And I think it's important to be have somewhat of a comfort level in talking about it because it means you're a strong person and you have good people in every corner of your room. So, anything else, baseball or mental health, that you want to share with listeners or viewers, Paxton?
No, I just appreciate you having me. It's been a lot of fun just to chit chat, even though it's uh just getting to know you over all these years and be able to get to know you, your mom and your family. It's been a lot of fun. So I'm just really appreciative that you had me on here.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us and sharing your story. I greatly appreciate it, and I know our listeners will really appreciate again you sharing your story and how you guys have gotten through some tough times. So, with that, I got nothing else. Thank you to our listeners and viewers for tuning in for another episode.